Howdy. This is the Views from the Shop podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller. And today it is Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. And I wish you a very, very, very happy Geographic Information Systems Day. Today's show is, as always, exclusively presented by College Basketball Analytics. You can go to cbbanalytics.com right now, sign up for a free account, get access to some stats and analytics. Sign up quickly, use your email, or you can sign up for a paid account as well. And of course, use the code SHOT, that's SCHOTT, SHOT. Use the code SHOT and you can get an entire month free as well off of a subscription. Here on today's show, we've got a few things to talk about. Thanks for being here, first of all. Second of all, if you're here to hear me address the banger bet from last night, I will do it. You can hurl your insults at me all you want, but when you bring the BIP into it, that's where we're going to have some issues. So yes, I will address the banger bet that we collectively did believe in. If you listen to the show, hopefully you listened to it and you said, yeah, I could see why we would take the over. It didn't hit, okay? And I'm not going to stand idly by and watch myself or my BIP get dragged through the mud. Therefore, we need to address that. But we're also going to recap a game in which Ohio State only allowed 30 points. They went 80-30 against Evansville last night. A very, very slow first half before they blow the doors off the shot in the second half and crush Evansville. We'll talk about key stats, key performers, and some takeaways in this one. One of which I would say probably no one is thinking of, but here we are. I'm thinking of it, and we need to talk about it. So as we get into this show, please do like the tweet that links the show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on YouTube as well. Please like that tweet, gets it out to more people, always helps the show. And if you want to do a little extra, make sure you're subscribed to the Views from the Shop podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the like button, throw a comment down. What's your biggest takeaway from the game as well? That helps. And then if you really, really, really want to go above and beyond, obviously you should be following on Twitter and on Instagram, but you should also give a 5-star review to the show. Okay. A sip, for it is the morning, so we'll grab some coffee here. It's the Chobani like cinnamon coffee cake creamer. I'm a huge fan of it. What I'm not a huge fan of is people being upset at the BIP. And I'm saying people as if like I got a bunch of hate comments and a bunch of DMs on Twitter and people saying that they're going to find me and come kill me. I didn't receive anything like that. At Brody Knows Ball, I don't know how much at Brody Knows Ball, assuming your name is Brody, who knows? I don't know how much that individual listens to or watches this show, but at halftime, it's 28-14. The over-under was not pacing anywhere close to hitting the over. The total in the game, not pacing where we wanted it to be. And it's easy in hindsight, right? I don't delete my tweets. At halftime, you can see the score. You can see the banger bet that we posted. The first one of the year was over 147.5. And we threw a little LMAO, huh? Funny? Is that funny to you, Brody? Is it funny to those of you who maybe didn't see this hitting and didn't take it? Sure. It's easy to say in hindsight, but we just need to backtrack here. We need a historical context on the BIP, okay? Just created this season. Let's remember what happened. In the Texas game, we projected 146 points in that game. The line that was presented to us was 147.5. We were off by 1 point. Against Youngstown State, the line for the spread quickly opened at 19.5, and then pretty much instantly, it moved all the way down to 17.5. What number did we have on that game? 17.5. And you could say, oh, well, that's easy for you to say. You just came out with this number after the numbers came out. That's not true. For the Texas game, I think we already had a number for the Texas game. For the Youngstown State game, I don't remember if we did. For Texas A&M, I know for a fact we did not. And for Evansville, as of the time of putting together notes for the show, I did not have a number. Didn't have the banger bet produced until I began recording the show. So that said, just remember that, okay? So Texas were pacing well, Youngstown State were pacing well, and then Texas A&M. We got the total exactly correct as what Vegas said. 147.5 was our projected total. They projected 147.5. Exactly right. We projected the spread at 5.5. That's where the spread was as well, at 5.5. So all that to say, that brings us to Evansville. We proudly declared the first Views from the Shop podcast banger bet of the season. We said, let's take the over 147.5. And guess what? Game script wise, we were actually kind of right. Now hold here, okay? Some people are going to say, how on earth can you say that you were right? This line shot up to as high as 150. It comes out at 147.5. I lock it in at 147.5. The sports book I was using for this bet limited me on this bet. Just saying, maybe there's something to that. And at one point, the line opening at 147.5, it moves all the way up to 150 at one point on at least one book that I saw, which means the early action, we were correct. We were sharp. By we, I mean me. That was, what was this game played on Tuesday? That was on Monday night when we locked that in. I look on Tuesday morning, it's up to 150. So we were right. The line closes at 148.5. So still kind of right? Like there's a little bit of value there. And the pace in this game was right. Evansville shot a bunch of three-pointers in this one. They were flying from Evansville just as we predicted, but no one could make a shot. Evansville couldn't, Ohio State couldn't, and yeah, sure, you could argue that you didn't expect Evansville to score a lot of points in this game, so the overhitting, it would be all on Ohio State. Did you expect Ohio State to not be able to score at all for the first 15 minutes of the first half in this game? Did you expect Evansville to make 4 field goals in a freaking half? Come on. Don't act like you expected that, okay? Hindsight's 2020. It's easy for you to say, and I don't see you coming out with your own banger bets. So if you're mad about it, you should have came out with your own banger bet and taken the under. Ohio State finally got there in the second half. They scored 52 points, which means that we kind of paced in the right way. Just couldn't make any shots in the first half. And again, it's easy to say couldn't make any shots. So that's how an under cashes. Yeah, kind of. But the defense wasn't good. The defense wasn't overwhelmingly good in the first half. It was just two offenses that simply could not make a shot. Contrary to what the announcers thought. That's my opinion. So defenses, it wasn't that good. The offenses were inappropriately bad. If I had children, I probably would have shielded their eyes and taken them to their bedrooms. If they had to watch this first half, I would have said, no, that's just, it's mature content. You can't lay your eyes on what happened in the first half. Ugly basketball. I mean, junior high level ugly basketball. And some junior high basketball games probably look better than the first half between Ohio State and Evansville. So at Brody Knows Ball, if you're listening, if you're watching, I see you. I hear your complaints. It's a long season ahead. We'll find something else that works. The BIP, historically, is on it. This game, it wasn't. That's okay. Another sip because I'm fired up. So I had to get that out of the way to start. Thanks for being here. As a reminder, please like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts as well. Today's show exclusively presented by CBB Analytics. So let's actually get into the game now. Talk about the game. We'll hit key performers and stats, and then we'll hit up some major takeaways. So Devin Royal was the star of this show. Ohio State again wins 80-30. I don't know. I assume it's not the least amount of points Ohio State has ever given up. I didn't look it up. They gave up 31 points in 2014. I don't remember who that was against. Adam Jardy tweeted that out on Tuesday night, but I don't know if 30 points is the least amount of points they've ever given up. I would assume not. Maybe like in 1902 when they were still throwing basketballs into real peach baskets. Maybe then they allowed less. But in like a modern era, post World War II, this could be the least amount of points they've given up. I'm not sure. But the defense was the star of the show. Individually, it was Devin Royal. 20 points in this one, 12 rebounds. It's his first career double-double. These announcers, I mean, it's Big Ten Plus, so I get it. I believe Tyler Danberg is one of the names there. One of those guys, either the play-by-play or the color, I believe he went to Ohio State, so I'll give him credit. Really a lot of belabored points I thought overall, in terms of the presentation, and the young lady who was shouting at me through her microphone didn't enjoy that. Had to turn the volume down every time she talked. That's Big Ten plus for you. What are you going to do? What does that have to do with anything? Oh, yeah, they continued to say Devin Royal was really close to his first career double-double. Well, he got it. 20 points, 12 rebounds, and super efficient as well. 7 of 9 from the field, 6 of 8 from the free throw line. So a solid performance out of Devin Royal. Are you going to continue to get that type of production from him? No, probably not. But when he comes off the bench like that, the 3-point shooting is not there. That's something the announcer said. I vehemently disagree that Devin Royal is a 3-point shooter, and I don't think it's not a part of his game. Really, it's not really a part of his game. Hasn't been even in high school when he was at Pickerington. Uh, Sorry, I don't think that the 3-point shot is going to be something that is really a huge strong suit to his game. If he's open, should he take it? Yeah, sure. I think if you play basketball in this day and age, you should be able to at least attempt an open 3-pointer and not airball it. I mean, Zach Edey's doing that in the NBA right now, and he didn't do that at Purdue. But I still would say Devin Royal, his ability, his rebounding ability has been phenomenal, even dating back to last year. This year, I'm curious on where Devin Royal's rebounding numbers are, not just the production, but overall his percentages. His offensive rebounding rate is 11.2%. That's 74th percentile in college basketball this year, 22.5% on the defensive end. That's 82nd percentile in college basketball this year. So he's rebounding the ball really, really well. I think that's something that you always expected from him. And he's kind of undersized too. He's listed at 6'6". I don't know if he's lost some weight. He's gotten a little more lean this year as well, but he gives up a little bit of size to play the 4, and it doesn't matter. He still is phenomenal positioning his body, being able to pull down some rebounds. And in this one, that effort was definitely on display. 20 points, 12 rebounds. It's easy to react to one game from Devin Royal. I won't react all that much to it. I'm not necessarily going to call for him to be in the starting lineup. However, I will talk about the front court in a takeaway, and I will wonder something with you later on in this show. But overall, a really, really solid performance from Devin Royal. It's good to see a game like that under his belt. Outside of that, only 2 players in double figures. It was Michi Johnson with 13 points and John Mobley Jr. with 11. John Mobley Jr. continues to score in double figures as a freshman. It's all he has done so far this year. And Michi Johnson, a really, really encouraging sign from him. Just after someone was in my comment saying that Michi Johnson should be benched, he decides, I'm sure he saw this comment. He says, 13 points. I'll go 5 of 8 from the field. I'll go 2 of 2 from the 3-point line. Won't miss a 3-pointer. This is a concern with Michi Johnson, the volume shooter. You need a lot of shots in order to score a bunch of points. You are hoping this year that because there's less pressure on him, because you've got Bruce Thornton, John Mobley Jr., Micah Parrish, players like that, that maybe he can be more efficient as a scorer. And at least in this one, he was efficient. You need to see him stack more games like that because you can score 11 points in a game. If you go 2 of 9 from the field, it's not that impressive. But when you go 5 of 8, when you don't miss a 3-pointer, that is much more impressive. So a really, really solid game from Michi Johnson. Really, really encouraging as well. John Mobley Jr., 11 points. Not as efficient from the field. He still shot the 3-ball well in this one, 2 of 4. He continues to pace over 50% from deep this year. So a solid game out of him as well. Bruce Thornton, he continues to produce. It wasn't a game in which he really blew the doors off the hinges in terms of scoring. He looked really, really timid early on scoring as well. I think he had some opportunities, especially on some fast break type chances where he'd get into the paint, he'd get to the rim, and then he'd just pick up his dribble and pivot and pivot and pivot again, looking for someone open rather than just taking it up and going for a shot. And he got yelled at one point by Jake Diebler heading into a timeout, heading into a break. And then you saw immediately after that, he drove to the rim and he missed a shot, but he got fouled. So I wonder if that was a time in which Jake Diebler was encouraging Bruce Thornton to be more aggressive as a scorer. I don't know if that's the case, but he did look timid. Offensively, it wasn't the best game from him in terms of shooting, 8 points, but he also had 7 assists in this game. Bruce Thornton continues to be a guy that you can trust Even if he's not going to give you a lot of scoring production on a given night, he's going to share the ball and he's going to distribute well. So he does a really, really good job of just facilitating the offense in this one. And then overall, Ohio State somehow shoots 52% from the field. After a dismal first half, they put it together in the second half. Again, they scored 52 points in that second half, and they end up shooting just 33% from deep. I think they were 7 of 21. Not the best game there, shooting from behind the three-point line, but it was against Evansville, and you don't really need to make threes when your defense is that good, allowing 30 points. So all in all, it's a game that you can be excited about, a game that you wake up on Wednesday morning and say, man, that felt good. And while, you know what, I posted the best tweet I've probably ever posted on X, or the best post on X ever last night. You know what? I'm going to retweet it right now because it deserves more love. So let's just get in there. It was a tweet basically comparing Ohio State football and Ohio State basketball communities to one another. And essentially, it's the scene in the office where Dwight is hanging out with that dental hygienist. He's got 15 likes. That's fine. He's hanging out with that dental hygienist. I don't remember her name. And Angela, how do you say this in a PG way? They have a contract to procreate, put it that way. And Angela would like to fulfill one of those 5 instances in which they should procreate. And she's just following behind Dwight and sneaks up on him. And Dwight kind of gets scared and he'll drop an expletive. And that's what it was like in the community. You feel like you're having a great time. You're enjoying your evening watching Ohio State basketball. And then all of a sudden it's, what the heck are you doing, Ohio State football? Ruining my evening with the center allegedly being out for the year. Now it's actually being reported by real reporters that is true. So we hate that for Ohio State football, but Ohio State basketball, you wake up and you feel good. So there is that. I'll be locked in for Ohio State and Indiana. You can trust that. Fun game, big game. Indiana's not the top 4 team in the nation. Come on, guys. All right, so takeaways in this one. Another sip coming. Running low. Takeaways in this one. Number 1, just a question. I got 2 what-if scenarios actually for you. This one and the next one. So let me ask you this. What if, have we considered a world where defense really could win championships for Ohio State? So in home games this year, Ohio State has allowed 47 and 30 points. I tweet that, of course, can't we just get along for one night? My goodness, Ohio State basketball. This community, can we get along for one night? Post the final score. I said something along the lines of defense blur basketball. It's not, defense blur ball. It's not D-blur ball anymore. It's defense blur ball. That is apparently what Ohio State is. Defensively, they were better under Jake Diebler than Chris Holtmann, and they've been really good defensively this year. So in home games, they allowed 47 and 30 points. Yes, against Evansville and Youngstown State. But I guarantee that person saying, it's against Youngstown State and Evansville. Cool. You know that. Do you know that Youngstown State's actually a pretty good team this year? Youngstown State, they could go to the NCAA tournament. They could win the Horizon League. Do you care about that? Do you think the Horizon League is a good league? No, probably not. You probably haven't heard of the CSUN either. So there is that. Evansville leading scorer in this game had 8 points. From the field, Evansville shot 19%, and they were 3 of 27 from the three-point line. But it doesn't just start with Evansville. It's been this entire season, even against Texas A&M and Texas. They allowed 72 points against Texas, 78 against Texas A&M. That's not great. That's a minor hiccup, but they still had a 99.1 defensive rating against Texas A&M. So they've looked really good defensively in all 4 games. This is a team with a 96 percentile defensive rating at 85.0 so far this season, and that is with 2 NCAA tournament team games under their belt baked into the schedule. And by the way, opposing offenses are making 29.5% of their shots from the field this year against Ohio State. That is number 1 in the nation. Ohio State under Jake Diebler is playing much better defense, and this could carry them in games where the three-point shot doesn't fall. This could carry them in games in the Big Ten where you need to slog out a win. It's a big step in the right direction for Ohio State. This defense is a huge, huge encouragement for Ohio State moving forward. So that needs to be shared. Yeah, it's Youngstown State and it's Evansville, but it's also Texas and Texas A&M. You gave up 72 points to Texas. That's not great. It's fine. Giving up 78 to Texas A&M, certainly not where you want to be, but in the grand scheme of things, this team looks really, really good defensively. You're seeing players block shots. You're seeing players who had issues with fouls last year. Aaron Bradshaw was one of those. Devin Royal, another. Both of those players are doing a much better job of not fouling. And when you start to combine that with Michi Johnson maybe taking a step forward, he's getting cookies every game, a couple. He'll grab a steal here, he'll grab a steal there. So I don't know. Maybe this team really is good defensively. Maybe that will be their calling card. If you want to win an NCAA tournament, you got to be top 30, at least offensively and defensively. If you want to make a Final Four, got to be top 30 at the absolute least. Right now, Ohio State is pacing as one of the best teams in the entire nation defensively. It's a long season. We'll see how it goes. That was a concern heading into this season. It's a super small sample size, so the jury is still out, but the early returns are great for Ohio State defensively. Now, how about another what if question for you? These are backed by stats coming from CBB Analytics. So let me say that first of all. Another what if. What if the starting front court should now come off the bench? Now, do I believe this fully? No, and I'm going to explain why here in a second. But let's first talk about Aaron Bradshaw. So he's starting to show some promise, 7.8 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game. We'll call it 8 and 5, 8 points, 5 rebounds per game, and 1.8 blocks. So 8 points, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks per game. He's really starting to show the promise. Now, the 3-point shot is not there. The rebounding numbers, not really there analytically, but he is doing a much better job when it comes to fouls. The most fouls he's had in a game this year is 3. That came against Texas A&M. He hasn't had another game with 3 fouls. And we were sitting there watching him in games against Oakland or Texas A&M last year where he would have 4 fouls in 9 minutes. And now he's playing full games and he hasn't had a game with 4 fouls this entire year. So that's a really positive indicator for Aaron Bradshaw. Again, it's early. It's super, super early. He hasn't had the chance to go play against Big Ten centers. He's going to have a test against Maryland and against Rutgers in December when it comes to playing real Big Ten post players. So that will be a factor. We'll see how he does there. But he's doing a much better job defensively. And his net rating on the floor is 47.1. That's the best on the team. No one has a better net rating when they are on the floor than Aaron Bradshaw this year on Ohio State, and he's all the way up at 47.1. That is absolutely elite. Now, on the flip side, you have Sean Stewart. So Sean Stewart gets hurt last night. He didn't get a full game sample size to really show what he could do against a team like Evansville, but the numbers just have not been there. 3.3 points per game, 6 rebounds per game. That's really good. Half a block per game. I mean, that's okay. The defensive rebounding metrics are still spectacular. 98th percentile in college basketball this year is Sean Stewart. He's kind of carried that over from last season, but the shooting metrics just are not good. He's not going to hit a 3 for you, maybe all year. If he does, it will be random and very, very few and far between at best. But the rebounding numbers are there. So you'll take that. Offensively, he's really out there as a screener. Last year at Duke, he did score as a roller off of screens. This year, not really getting that. And Sean Stewart currently has a worst net rating among qualified players on the team, and he's 7th percentile in college basketball. So a huge, huge difference there between Aaron Bradshaw and Sean Stewart. So should the starting front court come off the bench? No, because Aaron Bradshaw should be starting. But who should replace Sean Stewart? Is it time to think about Sean Stewart coming off the bench? There's going to be an opportunity here, I think, for Devin Royal or for Evan Mahaffey to return, if you're Evan Mahaffey, to the starting lineup, Devin Royal to be a consistent starter, because Sean Stewart could miss some time due to that injury. It was a scary injury. Very thankful that he got up off his own power. You saw the hands, like Tua Tagovailoa, kind of similar situation when you get that concussion. You've seen players, see that before, especially in football, where your hands, your wrists kind of curl up. I couldn't tell if he was doing that, if he was just laying very still, but that was scary. And I was concerned for Sean Stewart. It was a tough fall. So happy to see that he could get up, walk off the floor with his own power, and sit down on the bench, get some more work before heading back to the locker room and not returning in the game. So very, very thankful that he's okay. I don't think he's a bad player. I'm just not sure that he's the best fit to be in the starting lineup for Ohio State. So first of all, I'm not sure this is really a Devin Royal tweet. I guess I would say he's coming off a great game, 20 points and 12 rebounds. Me personally, at this point, if you listen to the show for a while, I'm not going to react that quickly just to one game. It was a great game for Devin Royal. Can he produce like that as a starter? We haven't seen it yet. But you know who we have seen produce as a starter? I don't know. Maybe a guy who started 35 games for Ohio State last year, and that would be Evan Mahaffey. So he's coming off the bench this year, but you know exactly what you're getting out of him, whether he's off the bench, whether he is coming in as a starter, you know what you're getting from him. Can he do what Sean Stewart is currently doing? Can he rebound as well as Sean Stewart? No, probably not. Let me just check these numbers to see if he actually is rebounding as well. Where's Evan Mahaffey on CBB Analytics? So his offensive rebounding rate is sitting there at 17.7%. That's better than Sean Stewart. He's 99th percentile. Defensive rebounding rate, 15.5%. That's 81st percentile. So he's rebounding just as well as Sean Stewart is. Can he set screens? Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what Sean Stewart has been doing this year. Outside of that, do you really need that much rebounding production if Sean Stewart isn't out there and Evan Mahaffey is basically replacing that? No, I don't think so. And I think defensively, you're putting in a guy who can defend anyone. He is the best defender on this team in terms of depth of position that he can play. Just ask Zach Edey, who was, for all intents and purposes, shut down against Ohio State last year. And Zach Edey stands about a foot taller than Evan Mahaffey. Not a full foot, but it's close. I think 10 inches, maybe. What is Mahaffey? Is Mahaffey 6'6"? Maybe 6'7". He's 6'6". So a 10-inch difference, maybe, depending on what Zach Edey technically is. I don't know. But Evan Mahaffey, he can rebound, he can defend, and he's not a shooter. Neither is Sean Stewart. But I think Evan Mahaffey may be a better fit for Ohio State to start because, number one, he's done it. He's produced. He can rebound. But also because we're just not seeing what we want to see out of Sean Stewart. Maybe a reduction in minutes. Maybe that helps him focus on certain things. I don't know. I really don't know. But the last thing I'll say, with Sean Stewart and Aaron Bradshaw on the floor this year, again, numbers coming from CBB Analytics, the breadth of stats there is amazing. It's a plus 12 plus minus. I know plus minus is a stat that feels outdated. A lot of people hate it. That's fine. Stewart and Bradshaw on the floor, plus 12 plus minus, and a plus 31.3 net rating. That's fine. That's good. That's above average. You'll take that. But with Aaron Bradshaw and Evan Mahaffey on the floor, they're at plus 26. So more than double on a terms of plus minus basis. Now, Bradshaw and Mahaffey have actually played more minutes together than Stewart and Bradshaw have, but the net rating is plus 46.0, and that's 96th percentile in college basketball. So that's exceptional. It's very, very good. This team is really, really good and at its best when Aaron Bradshaw and Evan Mahaffey are on the floor. Ohio State has started really slow in 3 of 4 games now this season. So maybe if you see Mahaffey starting, maybe this team starts a little less slow. They look a little better. And the numbers are just about as good, by the way, with Bradshaw and Royal on the floor. But again, you just haven't seen Royal produce as a starter. So that's why I would lean toward, let's see what Mahaffey and Bradshaw can do starting games for Ohio State. All right, one more takeaway, one more sip. Foggy morning here in Ohio. Hopefully you got, if you're in school, maybe you got a delay. If you're a teacher, other than that, we just kind of got to go to our jobs, don't we? But it's a foggy day, but we can still be excited about Ohio State basketball. Colin White is a player we need to talk about, okay? I, again, am a slow reactor. Colin White has only played in 2 games this season, but Colin White is looking very, very good for Ohio State, even in the limited playing time that he has got. Now, I predicted on the preview show that Colin White would make his first three-pointer against Evansville. First three-pointer of his career, first shot of his career. However, I didn't know that he was going to clown around and hit a second three-pointer as well. And look, for a guy like me, I love Colin White. Why? Because he was the first real guest on the show that was a recruit or a player or a coach or a member of the staff or anything like that. Colin White was the first. So there's a special place in my heart for Colin White, but I'd like to think this is unbiased. Again, I hate this take. It's such an easy take to say Devin Royal should be starting after one game of scoring 20 points and 12 rebounds. It's so easy to say Michi Johnson should come off the bench because he's had a couple of less than ideal games. It's a lazy take because we see 5 minutes of a player like Colin White every other night, not every other night, every other game. While on the flip side, these coaches are seeing these players for what? At least 15 hours every single week. And we see them for a couple minutes every night. Even if they're a starter, you see them for less than an hour in game play. So I'm not going to act like I know the coaching. I know the players better than the coaching staff does. That would be insane to assume. But Colin White looks the part right now. Again, I get it's Youngstown State and Evansville. He looks exceptional. So when it comes to passing, he's got a 34.2% assist rate right now. That is absolutely exceptional. That has led to an 8.6 assist per 40 minutes number and a 4.0 assist to turnover ratio. That is one thing that Colin White needed to improve on in high school. That's kind of what held Ohio State back when Chris Holtmann led the program from offering Colin White. He's improved as a passer. He looks exceptional. He looks so comfortable as a passer out there for Ohio State in 2 games this season. He had 6 points last night against Evansville, 2 made 3-pointers, 2 of 3 now on the year from deep, shooting the ball well. He had a steal against Youngstown State. He had 4 rebounds as well against Evansville. So he's putting together complete performances, even if not in a 20-minute type of game. He's playing a few minutes in games that are blowouts, but he's looking very good and he's looking very, very promising as well. I think that's a major takeaway with Colin White after playing against Evansville is he looks the part, and at this point, he is looking comfortable, which is hard to do as a freshman. So we're on an upward trajectory with Colin White for sure, at least on this show, on the Views from the Shop podcast. Last takeaway. So that Texas A&M game was obviously disappointing. You want Ohio State to win. They did not perform well. They didn't look good. They didn't look good in the first half against Evansville. They didn't look good for a lot of the first half against Youngstown State, although the defense has been there every game this season. This team is still really, really good. The second half against Evansville is more proof of that. You beat a team 52-16 and a half. Now, let's say it happened in the first half and Ohio State is up 52-16. Screenshots like Ant Wright on Twitter, he's going to screenshot that score and say, oh, maybe Ohio State is really good. Like, people are going to, those who talk about college basketball maybe are paying attention to scores, not watching Ohio State and Evansville on Big Ten Plus, which I would recommend that you probably not. If there's other games that are on, like Marquette and Purdue going on last night as well, they're going to take a look at scores and they're going to see Ohio State's up on Evansville 52-16 at the half, and they're going to post that, and everyone's going to say, oh, wow, Ohio State's really good. But this happened in the second half. And because of that, people aren't going to see that score. They're not going to see the breakdown, and they're going to see 28-14, Ohio State beating Evansville. Big deal. So it was a slow start. But if you flip these halves around and you still win 80-30, people are going to say, man, this Ohio State team is really good. And that's what happens when you have freaking AP poll voters who are box score scanners. They don't actually watch the games. They just scan box scores, and they'll say, well, Ohio State beat Evansville 80-30. That's pretty good. But, you know, first half, they didn't look great when I checked the score. Shut it. One of these days, this team is going to put together a complete game. The closest that we've seen that was actually against Texas, and they won 80-72. They didn't do it last night against Evansville. First half looked really bad. They really didn't do it against Youngstown State. Obviously, they didn't do it against Texas A&M. Maybe it will happen on Friday against the Campbell Fighting Camels. I will be there in attendance, first game of the year. Excited for that. I don't know when it's going to happen, but when it does, this team is going to put more people on notice. I think they put people on notice with their win over Texas, and they're going to have many more opportunities to do that. They need to do it against a team like Campbell. They need to do it against a team like Green Bay. In one of these soft cupcake bye games before the Big Ten play starts, they need to do it. But let's say it happens against Rutgers or Maryland in December in their first Big Ten game. People are going to take notice of that. So this team is really, really good. I think it's still safe to say that. There's more that you want to see from them, but the foundation is good. That Texas A&M loss, that was a setback, but there's still a lot to be excited for about Ohio State basketball at this point, and this game against Evansville is more proof of that. Alrighty. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to preview Campbell, and then we will do a Saturday morning release for Ohio State versus Campbell recap. Make sure you're subscribed if you made it this far as well. If you make it this far on the show and you haven't given a 5-star review yet, I would have to ask, why not? Please do it. Helps the show out a bunch. That's it. That's it for an Evansville recap. We will look forward to Ohio State taking on Campbell. Another bye game, another game in which they should win easily. That'll come on Friday. Until tomorrow, when we're back to preview Ohio State against Evansville. I think you've been listening today more than you could ever understand. I will shut up before you shut me off. Go Bucks.